My name is Nick Kosis. I'm owner and brewmaster of Dead Bird Brewing Company here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. With a name like this, it's got to be a bit of a story, and it goes back to when my business partner and I were homebrewing in college. So we started homebrewing, and the first thing you need to brew beer is a large pot. Back then, everybody was deep frying turkeys and burning down their garages. So those big 7.5-gallon aluminum kettles were everywhere. His parents had one in their attic, and when we went to go find it, sure enough, there was a little dead, desiccated sparrow in the bottom of it. I worked at the UW Chem stockroom as a student at the time, so we cleaned it every way we knew how, acids, bases, autoclave, whatever. The joke always was any beer we ever made in that pot was going to have a little dead bird in it. So 15 years later, we don't have the pot anymore, and ironically, we're Wisconsin's only all-vegan brewery, so there's no dead birds near anything. We're a vegan brewery. What does that mean for beer? Beer, if you go back far enough, is 4 ingredients. If you believe 1,000-year-old Germans, it's water, barley, hops, and yeast. All of that is, that's all vegan from the get-go. But modernizing food processing has started to include certain things. So one of the main ones, if we're not talking about lactose sugar for milk or bacon or bull testicles or any of the other non-vegan things people have thrown in beers over the years, oysters, is what are called fining agents. And these are things that are put in, they're called process ingredients. They're used in the manufacturing and then they're taken out later, usually. 2 of the main ones are gelatin, which is ground up animal bones, and the other one is isinglass, which is dehydrated fish swim bladder. And those are used to kind of glue everything together that's floating around in the beer, and then they get filtered out. We started homebrewing because we thought it'd be cheaper. It's not. It's cheaper to go out and buy beer. So we needed a fair amount of money to start up, and we were running basically a Kickstarter. This was right around the time Kickstarter was allowing projects, but not companies. So we were kind of running a back alley Kickstarter for ourselves. And to promote it, we were sharing it with all of our friends, and one of them on social media posted, "Hey, you should support these guys. It's really outstanding beer by 2 upstanding gentlemen." And so we kind of knocked that around. And that was our motto probably for the first year and a half. But as the company grew, we started adding other people. And we kind of realized down the road that most of our company was women. So we had t-shirts made up that had the gentleman crossed out and had ladies put in under it. That really is like the 2 pillars of what we want to do as a company. We want to make really good beer, the best beer we can make. And then at the same time, we want to be as upstanding and supportive of our community and the area that we're in and the industry as possible. I wanted to make sure that the impact we were having as a brewery was as helpful and beneficial as possible to the community that we're in. And that's not something that I knew enough to figure out on my own. So one of my very first staff, and she's still our operations manager, I told her, like, hey, your first project is to find me a nonprofit partner to work with. And we've worked with a bunch. We worked with LIT, Leaders Igniting Transformation. It's an organization to get young voters out to the polls for things. We've worked with a whole bunch of other programs that support art and music and design, internship programs, things like that. One of the main ones for us has been True School. They're a local Milwaukee organization. When we started looking for a place to open here in Milwaukee, one of the things we wanted to make sure is that people have stuff to do when they're here. Like, if you're going to come in and I want you to have 3 or 4 beers, I don't want you to have them all right in a row. I want you to be here for a bit, and while you're here, I got to give you something to do. So we were looking at options for entertainment kinds of things, and we looked at indoor bocce courts. We looked at all sorts of things. And I had a connection to an arcade supplier, and that was a pretty easy choice once we found this location. The bocce court worked in this really long building we were looking at. This doesn't really have the space for it. Arcades, on the other hand, we were able to fit a fair amount of them in here pretty quickly. And it's been an evolving thing. We started out with a lot of pinball. Pinball can be hard to upkeep, so we moved to some other games. We have started becoming more family friendly, so we got some crane games in that have stuffed animals, prizes, and rubber ducks in them. Apparently that's the thing. But yeah, personally, it's a revenge thing. A lot of these games took a lot of my allowance when I was a kid, and I want that money back. So when you look through it, you'll see a whole bunch of numbers. You got to point it at a bright light. You'll see a whole bunch of numbers, and then blue, and then way down at the bottom, there'll be a spot where it changes to white. And that number tells us the current sugar content that's in there and how far along in the fermentation is. We are shooting for around 250 barrels this year. American barrel is 31 gallons, so we'll be 31 times 250. And it really kind of depends. I would like to see us way north of that. And, if we could we have the capacity to do just under 1,000 barrels a year if the equipment is full constantly. I don't know if we'll get to that point, but we could do it. It would be a lot of work. So our fermentation tanks are 5-barrel tanks, but they hold about 6.5 barrels just due to the expansion that occurs during fermentation. So, we're around 155 finished gallons of product every time we brew. And it really varies depending on the beer. If we have something with a lot of hops in it or something that is very alcoholic, those all tend to shrink the final volume of the product. Same if we're throwing something in that absorbs product like chamomile flower or coriander or spices like that. Those all absorb what winds up being your final product at the end. Yeast, we actually have a pretty advanced micro lab here. My background is microbiology, and we propagate a lot of our own yeast, so we're able to harvest off a previous batch, wash it, and store it, and then propagate it up, which for a brewery our size, there's not a lot of places doing that. It's cloudy because there's still active yeast in there, and on the back end you can taste like a breadiness.
Oh, I love this, yeah. I know.
That's towards the back end. So this is actually another brewery's beer. We do what's called contracting. We'll make somebody else's beer for them,
Nice.
kind of thing. But it's their recipe, it's their ingredients, everything else. So that beer is probably almost entirely done fermenting. So it's only 4.5% when it's finished, so it's probably around 4%. And it'll squeak out the last 0.5% over the next week. I love the feedback. I love people telling me that something I made is their favorite. That's great. And it's fantastic. And it doesn't get old. Every time it happens. Every time somebody comes in and says, wow, this beer is really good, or wow, I've never had anything like this before, or hey, I thought I had a favorite brown ale, but yours is my new favorite. I love that every time. And I think that's the thing that keeps me coming back to it. The worst part, there's not necessarily like a single worst thing. It sucks to have to cut Thanksgiving short and come back and be here at 8 a.m. on a Black Friday to have everything ready for Black Friday release. But then there's good parts of that too. It sucks, having to drop what you're doing and come in and 10 bar because somebody got sick or somebody left or whatever. Those things are always the shittiest parts of the job, but they're the things that I do so I can have those really good things. This little business, I've been a serial entrepreneur. I've started a couple different companies before. Some have gone pretty well, some have been total disasters. This one's been around the longest. It's the one I love the most. I get to have my dream job, and my dream job also includes all the bad parts of it too. It's still a job, and you know, the best thing is really easy to pinpoint. The worst thing is, you know, Legion. There's a lot of things where it's like, man, this sucks. But those are offset by the stuff that's really good.